If you had told me a year ago that I'd fall for the guy who used to steal my fries in the school cafeteria, I would have laughed and told you to lay off the rom-coms. But life's funny like that. It started with a favor. Just a simple, innocent favor. At least, that's what I thought. "Hey man, can I crash at your place for a bit?" Owen asked, leaning against the doorframe of my small downtown apartment like he hadn't ghosted half our high school reunion the weekend before. He looked exactly like I remembered. Just taller, scruffier, a little more worn in that good way, like someone who'd lived a bit since graduation. I hadn't seen him in 5 years. Not since he left for a soccer scholarship down south and I stayed behind, studying graphic design at the local state school. Now here he was, standing in my doorway, duffel bag slung over one shoulder, hair slightly damp from the rain outside. "Seriously?" I blinked. "Didn't peg you as the couch surf until I figure it out type." Owen chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, me neither. But I'm in a tight spot. Can't stay with my cousin anymore, and hotels are too pricey. It's just temporary. A few days, tops." I should have said no. I barely had enough space for myself, let alone a 6'1" ex-jock with a suitcase full of what I imagined was mostly soccer gear and protein powder. But something in his voice, some mix of humility and desperation, got to me. "All right," I sighed, stepping aside, "but no hogging the blankets. And you're taking the floor." "Deal," he said, flashing that stupid grin I used to secretly hate because it made him look even more charming than he already was. By the third day, my living room looked like a sporting goods store had exploded in it. "Dude, do you have to leave your cleats by the door?" I grumbled one morning as I tripped over them on my way to get coffee. Owen looked up from the couch, where he was scrolling through his phone. He had that just woke up look, messy hair, t-shirt slightly twisted around one shoulder, and it did weird things to my stomach. "Where else am I supposed to put them?" he asked, not even a little sorry. "In your duffel, under the couch, in the trash, anywhere that isn't directly in my path." He laughed and held up his hands. All right, I'll move them. Don't get your boxers in a twist." That became our rhythm, bickering in the morning, tripping over each other during the day, then sitting together in silence most nights, watching whatever Netflix fed us. And somewhere in that silence, things started to shift. I'd catch him looking at me, not in a bro-ish, past the remote kind of way, but like he was noticing things. Like the way I stretched when I got up, or how I chewed on my straw when I was thinking. And I was noticing him too. The curve of his shoulder when he leaned forward, the soft sound he made when he laughed, the way he smelled after a shower. Clean, like cedarwood and something warm underneath. It was subtle, nothing obvious, but the tension was there, like a string slowly tightening between us. Then came the night that snapped it. It was storming, rain hammering the windows, thunder low and steady in the distance. The power flickered and then cut out completely around midnight. "Well, shit," Owen muttered from the couch. I lit a candle and set it on the coffee table between us. The soft glow made the room feel smaller, more intimate. I sat down on the floor beside him, hugging a pillow to my chest. "You good?" I asked, half teasing. He nodded. "Yeah, just not used to this kind of quiet." We sat like that for a while, not talking, just listening to the rain. Then he shifted, and his knee bumped mine. I didn't move away. Neither did he. "Hey," he said suddenly, voice low. "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah." He looked at me for a long moment. "Back in high school, did you ever think I was a jerk?" I blinked. What? I mean, was I ever shitty to you? Like, not just in the dumb friend way. Actually shitty, I thought about it. About the teasing. The way he used to toss things at me in class. The playful shoves. The weird moments that always felt a little too charged. "Not really," I said. "You were just you." Owen nodded slowly. Then, after a pause, "I always kinda thought you hated me." I snorted. "Nah, I think I just didn't know what to do with you. That made him smile. Yeah, same. The air between us grew thicker and I could feel his eyes on me. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Then, quietly, he said, I used to wonder what it'd be like if we weren't just friends. The candle flickered, casting shadows across his face. My heart kicked up a notch. Yeah, I managed to say. He nodded. And just like that, everything changed. After Owen said it, that he'd wondered what it'd be like if we weren't just friends, the silence that followed felt deafening. I didn't know if I was supposed to respond with a joke, a question, or just pretend I hadn't heard him. I didn't do any of those things. I just sat there, heart hammering, wondering how the hell we'd gone from roommates to this. Owen didn't push. He didn't look embarrassed or regretful. He just leaned back on the couch and stretched, his arm brushing lightly against mine, and for the first time since he showed up at my door, I didn't pull away. Anyway, he said after a while, don't mind me, just late-night thoughts. Rain does that to me. He smiled. Soft, not cocky. And then he got up and padded toward the kitchen like he hadn't just detonated a small emotional bomb in my living room. I sat there in the candlelight, replaying the way he said it. Calm, casual. Like he'd been thinking about it for a while. Maybe he had. When he came back, he handed me a glass of water and sat cross-legged on the couch, watching the rain without saying anything else. I wanted to ask what he meant. I wanted to know if it was a joke or a dare or some kind of weird confession. But I also didn't want to shatter whatever weird, fragile thing had settled between us. So we didn't talk about it. Not that night. But everything changed after that. Little things became loaded. Like when he handed me my coffee in the morning, his fingers brushed mine and didn't move right away. Or when he came back from the gym, sweaty and flushed, and flopped onto the couch without saying a word, but his eyes would linger on me for just a second longer than before. I kept telling myself it didn't mean anything, that he was straight, that maybe he was just figuring something out, or just bored, or maybe this was all one long, slow test of my self-control. But then came the Thursday night incident, the one I still can't explain. I was up late, working on a freelance project. My headphones were in, music low, and the soft glow of my monitor was the only light in the room. I didn't hear him come in. I didn't realize he was behind me until I felt the shift of air, the subtle sound of a breath. I turned in my chair, startled, and there he was, standing close. Too close. Sorry, he said quietly, like he wasn't sorry at all. Didn't mean to sneak up on you. It's fine, I said, pulling off my headphones. What's up? He didn't answer right away. Just looked at me, head tilted slightly, as if trying to figure something out. Then he asked, Are you into anyone right now? The question hit me like a slap. Why? He shrugged, not breaking eye contact. Just curious. I stared at him. You've never asked me that before. He nodded. I know. We sat in that weird quiet again, him watching me trying to read between the lines. No, I finally said. No one right now. He smiled, a little too satisfied. Good. And then he walked off. Just like that. I don't know what the hell he meant by good, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I replayed that short conversation in my head 100 times while trying to finish my work, my stomach tight, my thoughts scattered. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, things were normal, irritatingly normal. Owen made eggs. I poured coffee. He asked if I wanted to go for a run with him later. I said, no. He shrugged. Like nothing happened. But everything had happened. By Friday, I was losing my grip. I needed space. Time. Air. So I told him I was going to visit my sister across town for the weekend. A total lie. and packed an overnight bag just so I wouldn't have to look at him and wonder what the hell he was doing to my head. He didn't seem surprised, just said, "All right, be safe." But the second I stepped outside, I heard him call my name. I turned. He stood in the doorway, barefoot, hair sticking up on one side, holding his coffee like a guy who hadn't slept well either. "Just let me know if you ever want to talk about stuff," he said, eyes unreadable. I nodded and walked away. I didn't go to my sister's. I sat in my car 2 blocks away for nearly an hour, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, trying to shake the sound of Owen's voice. "Let me know if you ever want to talk about stuff." What did he mean by that? Did he know what he was doing? Or worse, did he not know? I drove to a cheap diner on the edge of town and ordered coffee I didn't drink and pancakes I didn't touch. I just sat there in the booth, listening to the clatter of plates and murmurs of tired waitresses, staring at the table like it might give me answers. I ended up crashing at a friend's place. Mark, a guy the first used to work with on a freelance gig. He didn't ask questions, just tossed me a blanket and pointed to the couch. I didn't tell him why I was there. I wouldn't have known where to start. That night, I dreamed of Owen standing in my doorway again. Same expression, same tone. Only this time, he didn't stop at the door. He came closer. When I woke up, heart racing, I knew I couldn't avoid him forever. I went back Sunday evening. The apartment was dark, quiet, except for the low hum of the fridge. His shoes were by the door, so I knew he was home. But he didn't come out to greet me. I didn't go looking for him either. We didn't talk that night. The silence between us now wasn't just thick, it was suffocating. Monday morning, I walked into the kitchen to find him already dressed, sliding his protein shake bottle into his backpack like it was just another day. He looked up and gave me a quick nod. "Hey, hey!" He paused like he wanted to say something else, but then just slung the bag over his shoulder. "I'll be late. Got class and then gym." "Cool," I said, even though I didn't care. Later. The door shut behind him, and I felt like I'd missed something important. I went about my day half present, deadlines blurred, emails piled up. By the time I realized it was nearly 8 p.m., I hadn't eaten anything. I microwaved a frozen burrito, took one bite, and tossed it in the sink. I couldn't stop thinking about the way he looked at me that morning. Like nothing had ever happened between us. Like those late-night comments and lingering stares didn't mean anything. Maybe they didn't. Maybe he was just confused, or bored, or experimenting. But that didn't explain the way I felt. Like I was waiting for something, like I wanted something. At around midnight, I heard the door open. He was back. Quiet. I didn't move. I was sitting on the couch in the dark, laptop closed, lights off, just waiting. He walked into the living room, sweaty, hair messy, gym bag still slung over his shoulder. He froze when he saw me. "Hey," he said, voice lower than usual. "Hey," I replied. He dropped the bag gently near the door and came over, standing in front of the couch. He looked down at me, unsure, like he didn't know if he was allowed to sit. I nodded toward the cushion next to me. He sat silent again, only this time, it wasn't empty. It was heavy. "I've been thinking," Owen finally said. "Yeah?" He nodded. "I don't think I'm straight." My heart punched through my chest. "Oh, that doesn't freak you out?" he asked, looking at me sideways. "No." He was quiet for a minute. Then, "I think that's part of why I came here." "What do you mean?" "I don't know," he admitted. "Just something about you. I figured if I stayed close enough, long enough, maybe I'd figure things out." I swallowed hard. "And have you?" Owen looked at me then, really looked. And then he said, "I think I have." I didn't know what I was supposed to say after that. "I think I have." His words just hung in the air between us. No takebacks. No, just kidding. They felt final, but not in a bad way, like he'd dropped a weight he'd been carrying for too long. And now I was holding it. We sat there in silence for a few seconds, maybe longer. Time felt strange, slowed down. Finally, I said, "So, what does that mean?" Owen let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. "I have no idea." "But you think you're not straight," he said again, firm this time. "That much I know." "And me?" I asked, before I could talk myself out of it. Are you saying you feel something for me?" He didn't flinch. "Yeah." That single word cracked something open inside me. Because for months, maybe even years, I'd wanted him to say it. I'd imagined it, fantasized about it. But hearing him say it, was something else entirely. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking. He noticed. Owen reached over and put his hand on mine. Not possessive, not dramatic, just there. Warm, steady, grounding. "I didn't mean to mess with your head," he said quietly. "I swear, I wasn't trying to play games." "I know," I said, voice barely above a whisper. "It's just a lot." "I get it." We sat like that for a while, his hand over mine, his knee pressed gently against mine. It was the kind of contact that would have felt casual between two friends. Except it wasn't. Not anymore. We both knew it. Eventually, he pulled his hand back and stood up, like the moment was finished. But just as he turned to leave, I stood too, and I said, "Don't go." He turned back. "Just stay here," I added. "We don't have to talk. Just sit." So he did. He sat back down. I sat closer. Our shoulders touched, then stayed touching. We watched the candle flicker on the coffee table until it burned out, the room swallowed by the dark. I don't remember who leaned in first. Maybe it was both of us. But the kiss, when it came, was soft, tentative. Like neither of us was sure it was allowed, but neither of us wanted to stop. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't a movie moment. It was two guys, sitting on an old couch, trying to figure out who the hell they were to each other. But when he pulled back and looked at me with that half smile, I knew it wasn't just a moment. It was a turning point. "I've never done that before," he said, almost sheepish. I smirked. "Could have fooled me." He laughed, really laughed, that full-body kind of laugh I hadn't seen from him in a while. And just like that, the tension that had been building for weeks finally broke. "Come to bed," I said. He looked surprised, not in a lewd way, more like he didn't think I'd want that I'd be scared to let the moment continue. But I wasn't scared. Not anymore. He followed me to my room. Quiet, careful, still barefoot. We didn't rush. We didn't do much, honestly. Just laid there, fully clothed, facing each other. His hand resting on my chest, my arm curled behind his head. It was the most peace I'd felt in years. Before I fell asleep, I whispered, "So what now?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I don't know." But the way he held me said enough. I woke up to sunlight cutting through the blinds, striping across the floor like golden bars. My room was warmer than usual, and for a second I didn't know why, until I felt the weight of an arm draped across my chest. Owen, still asleep, his breath slow and even against my shoulder. One leg tangled with mine, like it was the most natural thing in the world, and maybe it was. Or maybe my brain was just trying to catch up with the fact that this was real. Not a dream, not some sleep-deprived fantasy I'd conjured. I didn't move. Didn't want to break whatever spell had made this possible. His thumb twitched against my ribs, and I realized he was waking up. I turned slightly, just enough to see his face as his eyes opened slowly. For a second, he looked disoriented. Then he saw me, and smiled. Sleepy, crooked, unguarded. "Morning," he murmured. "Morning," I said, trying not to smile too hard. He stretched a little, groaning quietly, and then rolled onto his back, eyes on the ceiling. "So that happened." "Yeah," I said, voice light. "That definitely happened." He turned to look at me again, more serious this time. You okay with that? I nodded. Yeah. Are you? Owen didn't answer right away. Then he said, I think it's the first thing in weeks that's made sense. That hit me harder than I expected. Because I got it. He'd been drifting since he showed up, carrying something he didn't know how to say. And last night, without saying much at all, he said it. We stayed in bed for a while, just talking. Not about us, not directly, but about stuff that circled around it. He told me about his old apartment, how things got weird with his cousin once he started pulling away from the whole straight boy persona, how soccer didn't feel the same anymore, how he didn't know where he fit. I told him about my last relationship, how short-lived it was, how I'd stopped trusting that anyone who gave me attention actually meant it. I'm not messing with you, he said, like he could read my thoughts. I know, I said, and I meant it. For the first time, I believed it. We eventually got up. We made breakfast like nothing was different, except it was. He bumped into me while reaching for a mug, and instead of muttering a quick sorry, he just stood there for a second, chest close to my back, hand brushing my side. It was small, but it meant something. The rest of the week felt like this weird, quiet honeymoon phase. We didn't define anything. We didn't need to. The shift was subtle. Gentle touches, knowing glances, the way he'd stand closer now than he ever used to. One night, we were watching something dumb on Netflix, and he casually put his arm around my shoulder. Not a big move. But I leaned into it, and he smiled. Like that was all he needed. But of course, nothing stays simple forever. The first real test came the next weekend, when some of his old soccer buddies came into town. Guys I barely knew, but Owen had played with them for years. They wanted to grab drinks, maybe crash at our place if they got too lit. You cool if they stay over? He asked, drying a dish while I cleaned up. Sure, I said, but I could already feel that knot in my chest tightening. Because I didn't know how Owen would act. I didn't know if I'd be his roommate that night, or something else entirely, and I hated that the question even had to exist. They don't know, he said, like he could hear my thoughts. I nodded. Figured. He looked down at the dish towel, then back at me. I'm not hiding you. I'm just not ready to make a whole thing out of it. I get it. I mean it, he added, stepping closer. This isn't a secret. Not to me. I wanted to believe him, and a big part of me did. But the other part, the one that knew what it felt like to be the quiet half of someone's life, wasn't so sure. Owen's friends arrived around 8 p.m., loud and shirtless by 8:10. 3 of them, all college soccer guys. Tall, tan, loud, the kind of dudes who still called each other bro unironically. They brought a case of beer and a Bluetooth speaker, and within 20 minutes my living room was a half step away from a frat basement. Pizza boxes on the table. Music way too loud. Somebody arm wrestling someone else. It was chaos in the most hetero way possible. I watched Owen move through them easily, like slipping into a jacket that still fit just right. He laughed louder, joked harder, threw a balled-up napkin across the room and got tackled into the couch for it, and I suddenly felt like a stranger in my own place. I knew this version of him existed. I'd seen glimpses, but I hadn't seen it like this, the way he smoothed his edges, the way his smile sharpened. Every now and then, his eyes would flick to me. A quick glance, check in, but that was it. I wasn't part of the rhythm. I wasn't included, not in that version of his life. At one point, I got up to go to the kitchen just to get away from the noise. I was pouring water when I heard footsteps behind me. Owen. Hey, he said, voice softer now that we were alone. Hey. He leaned against the counter beside me, not quite touching. You okay? He asked, eyes on me instead of the cup in my hand. I nodded. Yeah. Just not used to crowds. He looked down for a second, then back up. I'm sorry if I've been weird tonight. I didn't know how to. He stopped. They don't know anything. Not even that I moved out of my cousin's place. It's fine, I said quickly, too quickly. It's not, he replied. But it will be. I just need time. I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. just handed him a glass of water and walked back to the couch. I stayed quiet the rest of the night. His friends didn't seem to mind. They were too caught up in stories, games, and taking turns passing out on the couch. By 2 a.m., the apartment had gone quiet. 2 of the guys were passed out in the living room. The third was asleep on a pile of couch cushions on the floor. I was in bed, alone, staring at the ceiling, fully awake. The door creaked open. Owen. He stepped inside, shut the door gently behind him, and sat on the edge of the bed. "I didn't want to sleep out there," he said, voice low. "You don't have to explain," I murmured. He slid under the blanket beside me, close, but not too close. We lay there in the dark for a long time. "I was scared," he admitted. "Of what?" He exhaled slowly. "That if I act different around them, they'll see through it, that they'll know something's changed. And then I'll have to admit that it has." "It has?" I said. He turned toward me. "I know." I reached for his hand beneath the blanket and held it. He squeezed back, not tight, but enough. "You don't have to make some big announcement," I whispered, "but you can't pretend around me." He didn't answer. But after a few moments, I felt his thumb brush over mine. Small, steady, like a promise. The next morning, Owen's friends were gone. They had left quietly while we were still asleep, probably trying not to disturb anything. Or maybe they just sensed something unspoken under the surface and didn't want to poke at it. I woke up to sunlight, and Owen's hand still in mine. It was subtle, innocent even, but it told me everything I needed to know. He was still here. We didn't talk much that morning. Made coffee. Cleaned up beer cans. He made a comment about one of the guys forgetting their phone charger, and I teased him about his frat energy. It was the first time we laughed in days without any weird tension behind it. But the real conversation came that night. We were sitting on the couch, lights low, some movie playing on mute in the background because neither of us was really watching it. I was half scrolling my phone when he set his down and turned toward me. "I told my cousin," he said quietly. I looked up. "What?" "I called him earlier. Told him I moved out because I needed space. And that I've been figuring some stuff out. About myself." My chest tightened. "How'd he take it?" Owen shrugged. He was quiet. Said he kind of figured something was going on. He asked if I was seeing someone. "And what did you say?" Owen met my eyes. "I said I might be." He said it like it wasn't a big deal. Like it was nothing. But it felt massive. I didn't say anything right away, just looked at him. That the guy who used to toss soccer balls at my head during gym class, the guy who showed up at my door with a duffel bag and a look on his face like he'd run out of options, the guy who had somehow become the safest person I knew. "You're really doing this," I said. He nodded. "Yeah, I think I want to." This wasn't just about us, it was about all of it. The admitting, the unlearning, the showing up for yourself, even when it feels easier to keep pretending. I scooted closer and rested my head on his shoulder. He leaned into me like it was instinct. "We don't have to label it," I murmured. "I know. We don't have to tell anyone else right away." "I know. But I'm glad you told him." He turned slightly and kissed the top of my head. "Just once." "Me too." That night, we didn't sleep in separate beds. We didn't hesitate. We didn't have anything left to prove. We just were. And maybe that was the whole point. A month passed, just like that. Owen didn't leave. He got a part-time gig coaching at a local rec center. Started helping out with kids, soccer teams on weekends. I kept working, mostly from home, sometimes taking photos of him at the field and pretending it was for content. We still hadn't defined anything, not with words. But we didn't have to. Everything else said for us. The way he'd make me coffee in the mornings, always exactly how I liked it, or how I'd pick up protein bars he swore were gross but still ate anyway. It wasn't flashy, There were no grand declarations. No "I love yous" screamed into rainy nights. Just slow mornings, easy jokes, and the kind of quiet closeness that feels more permanent than anything loud ever could. One night, we were lying on the floor after rearranging the living room because Owen thought the couch would vibe better on the other wall. And we just stayed there, side by side, looking at the ceiling like it held answers. "Do you ever think about high school?" he asked, out of nowhere. "Only in nightmares," I said, grinning. He chuckled. "No, but really, I used to think I had everything figured out." "You were kind of a cocky asshole," I teased. "Was I?" "Absolutely, but a charming one." He turned his head toward me, one eyebrow raised. "Charming, huh? Don't let it go to your head." He smiled, then got quiet. "You were the first person who really saw me," he said softly. "I just didn't know how to deal with it back then." I reached over and laced my fingers with his. "You're dealing with it now." He squeezed my hand. "Yeah, I guess I am." We stayed like that until our backs started hurting. Then we moved to the couch, tangled in a blanket, watching a movie we didn't finish, because halfway through, he kissed me. And I kissed him back. And nothing about it felt complicated anymore. Some nights I'd catch him staring at me when he thought I wasn't looking. Not with confusion or uncertainty, just contentment. Like he finally saw something clearly that had always been blurry before. One night, as we lay in bed with his arm around me and my face buried in the crook of his neck, he whispered, "I never thought I'd be this happy just existing with someone." I didn't say anything, just kissed his collarbone and held him a little tighter. Because I felt the same, we weren't perfect. We still argued about stupid things, like whether pineapple belonged on pizza or who always left the lights on. But underneath all of that, we knew. This was ours. No performance. No pretending. Just two guys, figuring it out together, and maybe messing up sometimes, but always coming back to each other. And that was enough.